היי, Edith. מה נשמע?
נשמע טוב, מצוין, מצוין.
Nice, טוב, nice to hear.
Okay, so we are in Exploring Reality 16. It's the 20th of December 2020. And we have received 4 questions, and I'm happy for all of them. The ninth derivation, where all this comes from, times of low functionality, and the end of year and the conjunction between Saturn and Jupiter. We might answer only 3 because you told me to do these explorations short. I'm
we have a lot to digest.
I'm trying to, so question 4 might be for exploration 17. Yes, we shall see.
Yes, maybe the 21st.
Yes. So we'll start with the ninth derivation. And the ninth derivation is a conscious act that otherwise would be unconscious. It's a conscious communication between the receptor in the slower plane and the origin. Otherwise, it would be unconscious. When it is conscious, it's signaling we are ready to partake. The unconscious signal is compulsory, surviving. It happens to all of us. We all dream, yeah? But the conscious say, like in the film Avatar, we see you. And this is already a mature signal. And here I have to remind about the 4 errors of existence, because this is what we are reporting. We are observing ourselves and we are observing these errors in ourselves. The non-existence had to create an error. It had to create a framework. It is like this space that we have created, yeah, just as an example, an analogy. We have created this space for the purposes of exploring reality. And it has existential errors. It must have, because you see, we meet only once a week, let's say, and because we are only 2 people, let's say, even a scientist making an experiment, say the vaccine, yeah, it is testing the vaccine in a specific time and conditions, only a few 10,000 people, and it can't see all of the side effects. So the one version, the universe, is only that. It is one version. And the one creating this one version has made certain decisions in its constitution. And this is the explanation to the 4 errors. And when we derivate, we are seeing, we are reporting the errors. And you have to go back to one of the previous explorations where we spoke specifically about the error of each plane. Because in order to open linearly each plane, there has to be an existential error. This starts to happen when the conscious derivation starts to happen when you install convergent logic by resonance and reconfigure your psyche, which means that we know to detect interference in the receptor, and the existential errors are interference in the receptor, because the derivation, the conscious derivation, is from 1 to 7 without the media of 4. Now, as a result, and we install convergent logic by resonance, meaning that we listen to this logic, and in this logic there is the convergence, the coherent convergence of the universe back into its point of origin. As a result of it, the ping pong in your head, which is many considerations, many voices speaking to each other, yeah, and you don't know which is me, which is my original self, and which is interference. But this noise reduces as you start to detect the existential errors and you start to report them. And you detect also when it is only repetition. It repeats the same values as an example, an ideology as an example. It says, like in the news, you know, they say all the time the same, because a new observation, and this is what you get after a quarantine of nocturnal derivations, a new observation is from our organic present. It has got a bodily registration, which is unique. It's a kind of a clarity. It opens the eyes. It oxygenates, yeah? Convergence doesn't separate because it has to do with coherent logic where everyone and everything play a part and is interconnected. In our education, we are used to ignore and think that all these things are not important. Things that happen in reality are not important. Now, in the case of our reality, we have potentially a permission to edit, if you'd like in the files, you know, that you can edit a file. It is not an automatic permission. The automatic mode is the unconscious, and it's not to edit. It is very much like a baby has got an effect on its parents just from the fact that they have a certain responsibility and psychology about their parenthood, and therefore all unconscious communication has an effect on them. But it is not the baby getting up and speaking up and saying, you see, parents, I have to eat at night, so therefore, please take this into your consideration and schedule. So up until now, we read things separated. And there is, as an example today, there was a blockage in the sewage system in the building I live in.
Right.
Now, we don't read it as something with a message from me. We don't read this reality as something that is connected to me, but it is when I apply a logic observation, I understand it is connected and it has a message. We think only humans have logic and mind and consciousness, but this is not the case. Reality does. The earth does. And when I think about the sewage system in the building, I see immediately that it is to do with the collective. It was discovered, my garden has got a neighbor and they've got another neighbor. Okay, so it was discovered in the middle neighbor, and the connection was to the next neighbor, the third neighbor. So it does not, as if it doesn't affect me in particular. So if it doesn't affect me in particular, we think, okay, it's nonsense. But no, it is a message, it is the interconnection, and it matters because the third neighbor the other day said something to me, we are all a bit crippled at this time. And I said back, actually, this is a lovely situation to develop, to create sanity. not just to feel sanity, because just feeling sanity is consuming sanity,
Right.
but to create sanity. Now, I know this neighbor will come back to me. At this time, they cannot come back to me because there is a blockage. So it so happened as well that I know how to read today. Today is 355, is the 355 year day of the year, and its negative, therefore, is -11. So what is managing the negative is the context, because 1-1 is how one receptor is dealing with another receptor. It's the collectivity. So once the technical person cleans the sewage system, I read logically that 2021 will have blockages and cleanings in the context of human to human, and also fractally in my own personal life. And this reminded me a call this morning, a person from work, that his performance is 5 out of 10. And after some time of regular explanations during the last 2 months, I developed in the last week consciously a conflict that today caused him to call. And we had a very good cleaning call. And finally, the message started to be received that 5 out of 10 is not enough. So this reading by consciousness in relation to 11 is a resource ready for 2021 in the collective. Again, because logically I am part of this species doing this reading, where I understand we have a lot to see and redo in the relationship on a personal level, collective, and institutional. You will hear many futurists and economists speaking about the new era of perception and post-capitalism and the like. And it prepares me to expect blockages in the sewage and not just say Happy New Year as an example. Now, Madame Curie used to say, nothing in life is to be feared. It is only to be understood. Now is the time to understand more so that we may fear less. And this is a logical tool to understand more. And by the way, you, Julia, might want to research because Mandelbrot, when he discovered the fractal in the context of complex dynamics and as a topic of mathematics, he also used a set which is called Julia, a set of fractals called Julia. So you might want to research this one. And when I say organizational change, we all know that the United Nations, as an example, today are plagued by interests, and they would have to develop, which means to change and converge. And this is the process that will ensue in the next 8 years. Now, my neighbor, the third neighbor, looked very interested when I told her that. And I know she will come back to me in a later moment and she will ask me about it, but not now because there is a blockage. And first, the blockage needs to open. So reality speaks all the time. We think it's not important. We didn't get the education to to understand how important it is and how to converge reality and how to read logically what is happening. Because otherwise I could sit here and, you know, be very judgmental about my neighbor that is interested but didn't really ask anything about it. But logically, when I read the situation, I see why. And that's perfectly okay. You know, clarity is something as well that we need to create and not just consume. I had the privilege of asking Falco, the leader of Damanhur in Italy. You might want to see where Damanhur is and what they are doing. He was telling a story, and I asked him, where do you get the hope that is driving you? And he replied, hope, it is not something you get. Rather, it is something you give. And this is convergent logic, not mysticism, mystic messages of comfort, may you have light and may the angels guard you and your dreams come true. We have turned very, very immature in relation to the structures of space-time, in relation to the human role. So I don't look at reality as an axiom, rather my observation of it becomes the axiom. And yes, there is a similarity of axiom and axis because the ninth derivation is made through the y-axis and the hierarchy is solar, earth, species, and personal. And the first derivation, ninth derivation I told you about was made from the hierarchy of species. Me as a part, as a member, as a representative of the human species, not me as a personal identity. And you have a responsibility when you see errors in the construction, you need to report them and you need to see them in order to correct them. And this is the ninth derivation done in the seconds where our conscious and unconscious vectors are meeting at night. So that was the first question. The second question is where all this comes from, all this development, where it comes from. Now I can answer linearly how this development started from something. We had a teacher that used to say for something to happen, something needs to happen before, like the seasons. Yes, I can answer from the linear vector and tell the story. I can also answer logically and say that this development comes from the sun's consciousness and the earth's mind communicating with the receptors because it is due, it's due time. And I can also explain that it comes from the logical observer reading numeric codings of the space-time structure as in the year 2020. It's like the first farmers understanding the seasons and understanding when is the time to seed and when is the time to harvest, but in the space-time structure. And there was a certain maturity in the human race by some to rise to that position. And this is where it comes from. As an example, those of you who teach, you know that in a in a group of students, let's say a class, some students are bright and they sort of lead the discussion and open up a new subject. So this is what happens now. A maturity by some opened up this whole realm of discovery. So this was about the second question. Now, there was a question about times of not being very functional. You know, you have your, you find out that you put the, your shirt inside the fridge, yeah? Or you were going to put this shirt inside the fridge when actually you wanted to put in the cupboard. And this is a very interesting observation about one's own biorhythm, because the law is that a day in which you don't feel very bright is excellent for observing limitations, is excellent for doing this observation. I repeat, without the emotional reactivity, because the emotional reactivity will wire me back to the old neurology. So I want to do the observation without thinking about it. Oh, I'm useless, or I've done it again, or I'll never succeed, or all the rest are succeeding and just I don't manage, and so on. Now I know that if I have a day or some days of intensive observation without emotional reactivity, then what will happen is that the next wave will be very bright. And this is something we also don't learn. I remember a colleague saying that he needs to develop something, but he doesn't know how. And I responded that this is exactly where to be in order to know. And this was very surprising to him. We expect to know all the time, and this is a wrong expectation. You can only know from not knowing. So days of low functionality are days for observation. And what happens is that the next wave is of a great connectivity. And you have a dynamic between connectivity and functionality. When there is a surge of connectivity, there is low functionality. And when it is very low, it's a time for intense observation. And then there will be an upsurge of connectivity. And this is the structure of things. It's not the content. The contents can vary. As an example, you struggle with a Google form. Let's say you need to perform a certain task, and this is the first time you do it. Such as I had last week, I had to use an application that gets the telephone numbers from a Google form and turns them into a WhatsApp group. Otherwise, you have to inform every telephone manually. Now, you start to do it and you don't find a way, but the next day you know. And this is life without anxiety. This is life without judging my neighbor, because it understands the structure. It observes. It's a neutral observation. And so this was about the third question. And now I will say a few things about this time of the year, because like you were speaking about the temperature of the body, that seems to be a constant, and how similar it is to the days of the year. And this year in particular, we have 366. And these last days of the year are for honesty, are for doing a certain assessment of me with others, and me with the environment, which is all the rest. And when I'm honest in this observation, without emotional reactivity, I prepare for myself all of the resources ready to be at my hands in the next year. And in the case of the finishing of this year, it's in the next 4 years, because we are finishing a solar cycle, which is the year when, because of the additional day, it can synchronize to the circulation of the Earth around the sun. And I think we've done the impossible. I know that the fourth question is just a start, but we will continue in the next exploration.
Thank you very much, Edith.
So I hope you like it. I like your Christmas tree. And
Yes,
instead
like,
of Happy New Year,
I think we will have one more before, isn't it?
yes,
No?
yes, but it starts already now. So I can bless, have happy, good observations and honest observations about yourself with yourself, yourself with others, and yourself with the environment.
It's a good blessing and wish. Thank you very much.
Ευχαριστώ πολύ. We shall see each other in the next, yeah?
Yes.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.